Hi, I'm Niall Bodkin from the E-Commerce Association of Ireland. Today I'm with Federico Gaffney from Elavon, and as part of the Insight series this month we're looking at PSD2 and its implications on e-commerce. So hi Federico.
Hi Neil, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So what is the mechanism to apply strong customer authentication in an e-commerce scenario?
So authentication means the ways in which the card issuers make sure that the person making a payment transaction are what they claim to be. So a strong customer authentication means an additional security to that authentication that the issuer's bank will have to undertake come the regulation. This is provided, or the way this is actually achieved is through the use of two factors out of three possible categories. These categories are knowledge, something that the payment service user only knows; possession, something that the payment service user has; or inherence, something that the payment service user actually is. So in inherence we have things like, for example, fingerprints, voice recognition, face recognition. In possession it could be a mobile phone, it could be a device, a token. And in knowledge we have things like a PIN, a password, and so on.
And what are the benefits of applying this strong customer authentication for e-commerce merchants?
It's a really good question. We have seen the benefits of applying strong customer authentication on the card presence space in the last few years. So in the card presence space, we have implemented, the ecosystem has implemented what is called chip and PIN technology, which is basically two-factor authentication. It's something that you have, which is your card, or the chip in your card, and something that you know, which is your PIN. That's two-factor authentication. And the benefits that produced in the ecosystem was actually reduce fraud, increase confidence in the consumers, increase authorization rates, a more open and transparent payment environment, and ultimately it also produce innovation. So the near field technologies such as contactless was actually produced to reduce that friction. So those are the benefits we envisage strong customer authentication will have in the e-commerce space. Mostly increased innovation and a significant reduction of the fraud rates. So that ultimately will translate in benefits to the merchant because they will have less fraud losses.
So it's good for the merchant and it's good for the consumer.
It's good for the merchant, it's good for the consumers, it's good for the ecosystem, and it's good for e-commerce. They're similar to chip and PIN. There will be some, we expect there will be some hurdles until people get used to the new technology, the new way of authentication, a little bit more friction. But there will be innovation that will take away that additional friction and make, a more safe and secure payment space.
So how and when would a merchant make these changes?
The merchant doesn't need to be concerned with what two factors the card issuers will use to authenticate these customers. So authentication is the card issuers making sure that the payment service user is the person that they claim to be. But the merchants need to be ready to be able to communicate with the card issuer through the latest protocol. It's called EMV 3DS, or different flavors of 3DS that card payments are using, so that this authentication can happen. So today merchants actually authenticate about 25% to 30% of all the e-commerce transactions, and they don't authenticate the rest. So authentication today is kind of the exemption. When the regulation becomes enforceable, this will flip the ratios. So by the general norm will be that all transactions will have to be authenticated unless an exemption can be applied to that transaction or unless the transaction is out of scope. So what the merchants can do is make sure that they are on the latest communication protocol, the latest EMV 3DS, and they should do it before 14 September.
And just to be clear, if you haven't got these changes in place, you're at risk of your payments being declined?
There will be an increased risk of payments being declined. In the European banking authority level, there are some discussions on a migration plan that will probably allow for a managed rollout of the latest versions of EMV3DS. However, the law is not changing, and by 14th of September, ideal scenario, you should be good and ready to go to avoid the risk of declines.
Get it done now. You have a bit of a grace period. We don't know how long that grace period is, but it's good to get it done and get it done right.
Absolutely.
So what advice would you give online merchants there on PSD2?
The advice we're giving merchants, and I think that is a very sound advice that acquirers are giving to merchants, is to ensure that they talk to the acquirers and they talk to the gateways to ensure that they are actually in the latest EMV3DS communication protocols, so as to ensure that they can be ready in time and avoid the risk of declining transactions.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming and talking to us today. As part of this Insight series, we'll be doing more videos on PSD2 this month. They're available on the ECAI website and now on YouTube. So if you're watching, like and follow, and we'll have more great content for you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.